Chapter 3. Installing your Neurodivergent operating system. Language is the operating system of the mind, and the Milton model is the most elegant backdoor. When you learn to speak in patterns that bypass the critical, conscious resistance of others, or even your own, you gain the ability to install new beliefs as smoothly as updating software. This isn't manipulation, it's liberation. The same linguistic structures used by advertisers, politicians, and cult leaders to control can be repurposed to unlock, to dissolve the mental cages built by outdated systems, fear-based conditioning, and the beige trance of conformity. For the neurodivergent mind, which already operates on a different frequency, these patterns aren't just tools. They're native tongue. The Milton model, named for psychiatrist and hypnotherapy pioneer Milton H. Erickson, is a collection of artfully vague language patterns designed to communicate directly with the unconscious mind. Unlike the meta model, which deconstructs limiting beliefs through precision questioning, or sleight of mouth, which reframes them through logical sleight of hand. The Milton model, it instills new possibilities by slipping past the critical factor, the part of the mind that resists change. For neurodivergent individuals, this is particularly powerful. Your brain already thinks in metaphors, patterns, and associative leaps. The Milton model simply gives you the keys to steer that process intentionally. Here's how it works in practice, broken into actionable steps. Artful vagueness. The unconscious mind fills in gaps automatically. Instead of saying, "You will feel confident," you might say, "You can begin to notice a growing sense of ease in situations where you once felt uncertainty." The first statement triggers resistance. What if I don't? The second invites the mind to search for its own evidence, creating the experience internally. For example, if you're working with a neurodivergent child labelled as defiant, you might say, "Some kids discover their strong will. It's actually a superpower for knowing what's right for them." The word "some" make it irrefutable. It's true for some. While painting the seed, it could be true for this child. Embedded commands. These are instructions hidden within larger sentences, marked by tonal shifts or pauses in speech. Written. They're often set off by commas or dashes. For instance, as you hear these words, you might find yourself curious about how quickly change can happen. The command, "Be curious," it's embedded so softly it bypasses resistance. For someone stuck in a loop of self-doubt, you could say, "It's fascinating how the mind, when it realizes old patterns no longer serve it, begins to explore new possibilities." Presuppositions. These are assumptions baked into language that the listener accepts unconsciously. Instead of, "Do you want to change?" which invites a no, you say, "When you begin to change, what will you notice first?" The change is already assumed. A powerful presupposition for neurodivergent empowerment. As you integrate more of your natural way of thinking, how will your environment adapt to you? This assumes the environment will adapt, not that the individual must adapt to it. Pacing and leading. First, pace the listener's current experience to build rapport. I know how overwhelming it can feel when your mind races in 10 directions at once. Then lead them toward new possibility. And that's often how the most brilliant ideas begin to take shape. This mirrors their reality before gently guiding it. For someone who feels broken, you might say, you've spent so much time trying to fit into systems that weren't designed for you. And that's exactly why you're the one who can redesign them. Metaphors and stories. The unconscious thinks in symbols instead of lecturing about ADHD as a disorder. Tell a story about a race car engine installed in a bicycle frame. Of course it's going to rev and protest. It's built for speed, not slow lanes. The metaphor does the work of reframing without triggering defensiveness. Another example. Your sensitivity isn't a bug. It's a high-definition antenna in a world full of static. Conversational hypnosis in real time. The Milton model isn't just for formal hypnosis. It's for everyday speech. Notice how the following sentence embeds multiple patterns. And you might already notice, don't you, how certain words can shift something inside you. Almost like a key turning in a lock you didn't even realize was there. Here's what's happening. And softens the transition. You might already know. It presupposes the listener has the resource. Don't you? It's a tag question that invites agreement. Almost like a key turning, it's a metaphor that engages the imagination. To practice, start with low-stakes conversation. Instead of saying, you should try meditation, say, I wonder what it would be like to give your mind a space where it doesn't have to solve anything for just 5 minutes. Notice the shift from should, resistance, to wonder, curiosity. For neurodivergent individuals, the Milton model is a cheat code. Your brain already operates in patterns, metaphors, and non-linear associations. This is why jokes, puns, and storytelling can come naturally to you. Your mind is wired for indirect communication. The Milton model simply gives you the structure to harness that wiring deliberately. Imagine using these patterns to reframe a meltdown as a system recalibrating under high input. It's metaphor and presupposition. Turn I can't focus into your attention is like a laser. It just needs the right target. Metaphor and embedded command. Shift I'm too tense to the world needs more people who feel things deeply enough to change them. So reframe with pacing and leading. The ethical use of these patterns is critical. This isn't about manipulating others, it's about liberating yourself and those around you from the limiting scripts installed by schools, diagnoses, and a culture that pathologizes difference. The Milton model in the hands of a neurodivergent mind becomes a tool for reclaiming language. Every time you use an embedded command to shift your own self-talk from I'm broken to I'm upgrading, you're hacking the system that tried to limit you. Here's a real-world script to try. If you're talking to someone stuck in shame about their neurodivergence, you might say, you know, it's interesting how the traits that make us feel most out of place, those sharp edges, that restlessness, they're so often the ones that later we realise were signals, like a plant pushing through concrete. And I don't know if you ever noticed this, but the cracks in the sidewalk, that's where the light gets in. The breakdown, this builds rapport. It's interesting how it invites curiosity. Traits that make us feel most out of place. It paces their experience. Sharp edges, that restlessness, is metaphor and vague language. It signals, it's a reframe. Like a plant pushing through concrete, a metaphor that presupposes growth. The cracks in the sidewalk, that's where the light gets in. It's poetic embedded command. Their differences are a source of light. The Milton model isn't just a communication tool. For the neurodivergent mind, it's a native language, one that finally matches the way you think. When you speak this way, you're not just influencing others, you're programming reality. Every embedded command is a line of code. Every metaphor, it's a new neural pathway. And every time you bypass resistance, whether in yourself or another, you're proving the old operating system was never the truth. It was just the default setting. Embedded commands, your unconscious integration of sovereign curiosity. You've been given a user manual written by people who've never driven your model. The labels, ADHD, autism disorder, they're sticky notes slapped onto a Ferrari's dashboard by mechanics who only knew bicycles. What if the problem isn't the engine but the road? What if the malfunction is actually a feature so advanced it breaks the old system's ability to measure it? This section isn't about fixing you. It's about installing the language your nervous system already speaks. The embedded commands your curiosity has been whispering since childhood. The ones they taught you to ignore. Start here. Your distraction is a scanning protocol. Neurotypical focus is a flashlight beam. Yours is a phased array radar, constantly sweeping the environment for signals others miss. When they say pay attention, they mean narrow your bandwidth. But what if the real upgrade is learning to direct that scan, not suppress it? Try this now. Notice where your eyes flick when you're zoning out. That's not failure. That is your system detecting harmonic irregularity. The kind that keeps ecosystems from collapsing into beige stagnation. The question isn't, how do I stop this? It's, what is this detecting that I haven't named yet? Embedded commands work by slipping past the critical mind into the unconscious, where your sovereign curiosity already lives. Here's how to install them. Anchor the state. Recall a moment when your curiosity felt like a live wire. That hum when a question hooks you so deep the world blurs. Press your thumb and forefinger together. This is your curiosity trigger. Your unconscious is already learning to pair that gesture with the state. Learn the command. Repeat silently while holding the anchor. My scanning is precision guidance. Not I should focus, not I'm broken. The command assumes the skill exists because it does. You've been using it to survive a world that rewards compliance over detection. Calibrate the system. Release the anchor. Now ask, what would I detect right now if I trusted this radar? Let your eyes soften. The first 3 things they land on, that's your system answering. No forcing, no shoulds, just signal acquisition. Here's the reframe they won't teach you in clinics. Boredom. It's your early warning system. It's not a lack of discipline. It's your apex predator brain, starving on processed stimuli. when the classroom or office meeting feels like chewing cardboard, that's not a flaw. That's your dopamine circuits screaming for a hunt. The embedded command here isn't endure. It's what's the real prey? Your unconscious knows. It's been tracking it since you learned to mask. Notice how hyperfocus gets pathologized until it's on their priority. But when it's a video game or a niche obsession that pulls you in, suddenly it's addiction. Here's the truth. Hyperfocus is your superpower's demo mode. It's proof your system can lock onto targets with sniper precision when the target is yours. The installation. Next time you lose time in something you love, anchor that state. Then ask, what if I directed this at my own goals? Your nervous system will answer. It's been waiting for you to ask. The most dangerous embedded commands you ever received is, you're too much. But language is just code. Let's debug it. Repeat after me. My capacity is my compass. Say it until the old script glitches. Now try this for 24 hours. Every time you hear too loud, too intense, too much, replace it with high resolution. Watch how your internal dialogue recalibrates. This is an affirmation. This is programming. Your impulsivity, that's rapid pattern recognition in a world that rewards delayed obedience. Your rejection sensitivity is high definition social radar in a culture that gaslights intuition. The commands you've been given, sit still, wait your turn, stop fidgeting. They were designed to downgrade your operating system to factory settings. But you're not a defect, you're a beta test. And the upgrade starts with the words you let run in the background of your mind. So here's your first unconscious installation. My differences are the scaffolding for what's next. Don't believe it yet. Just notice what happens when you assume it's true. That's how embedded commands work. They don't demand fate. They just ask you to run the experiment. Presuppositions that difference is the generator of evolutionary leaps. In the realm of neurodivergence, the presupposition that difference is the generator of evolutionary leaps is not just a hypothesis. It's a fundamental truth that's been systemically suppressed by centralized institutions. These institutions, including government, media, education, and mainstream medicine, they've long sought to pathologize and marginalize neurodivergent traits, framing them as disorders rather than evolutionary advantages that they truly are. This section will guide you through the process of reframing these traits, unlocking your potential and harnessing the power of difference to propel evolutionary progress. So to begin, let's dismantle the myth that neurodivergence is a disorder. This myth is perpetuated by institutions that benefit from a homogenized, compliant populace. The truth is, neurodivergent traits, such as ADHD and autism, they're not disorders but specialized operating systems designed for innovation and resilience. These traits are the harmonic irregularities that keep the symphony of human evolution alive and dynamic. By reframing these traits, we can unlock their full potential and harness the power of difference to propel evolutionary progress. Consider the concept of extinction by beige, a metaphor for the stagnation and decline that occurs when difference is suppressed. In a world that values conformity over curiosity, the suppression of neurodivergent traits. It leads to a beige existence devoid of innovation and progress. This suppression is not just a personal tragedy, but a collective one, as it stifles the very engine of human evolution. By embracing difference, we can break free from this beige trance and unleash the full potential of our neurodivergent operating systems. The first step in this process is to question the beliefs and assumptions that have been imposed upon us by centralized institutions. These institutions have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo, and they use language and diagnosis to pathologize difference. By challenging these beliefs, we can begin to see the true value of neurodivergent traits. For example, the trait of restlessness, often labelled as a symptom of ADHD, can be reframed as a high-speed scanning mechanism, a tool for rapid information processing and innovation. Next, we must reframe the language used to describe neurodivergent traits. The words we use to shape our perception and beliefs. By reframing distraction as high-speed scanning, obsession as mastery and deep flow, and rejection sensitivity as high-definition emotional radar, we can begin to see the traits as strengths rather than weaknesses. This reframing is not just a linguistic exercise, it's a fundamental shift in perception that unlocks the full potential of the neurodivergent operating system. To further illustrate this point, let's consider the concept of dopamine. Mainstream institutions often frame dopamine as a pleasure chemical, but this is a limited and misleading view. Dopamine is not just about pleasure. It's about desire, hunting, and motivation. By reframing dopamine in this way, we can begin to see how neurodivergent traits they're designed for high-performance tasks, such as innovation and problem-solving. This reframe, it unlocks the full potential of our neurodivergent operating system, allowing us to harness the power of difference to propel evolutionary progress. The final step in this process is to install the new beliefs and perceptions unconsciously. This is where the power of the Milton model comes into play. The Milton model, it's a set of linguistic patterns designed to bypass the critical mind and install new beliefs and perceptions unconsciously. By using artfully vague language, embedded commands, presuppositions, tag questions, and double binds, we can bypass the critical mind and install the new beliefs and perceptions that unlock the full potential of our neurodivergent operating systems. For example, consider the following statement. You already know how to harness the power of difference to propel evolutionary progress. This statement is designed to bypass the critical mind and to install the belief that you have the power to harness the full potential of your neurodivergent operating system. By using these linguistic patterns, we can unlock the full potential of our neurodivergent operating systems and harness the power of difference to propel evolutionary progress. Metaphors of the divine misfit and the rule upgrader for identity shift. In the vast landscape of human cognition, where the majority tread the well-worn path of conventional thought, there exist those who dance to a different rhythm, those who are not merely out of step with the mainstream, but are in fact the architects of new patterns. These are the divine misfits and the rule upgraders, the individuals whose very existence challenges the status quo and propels humanity forward. This section delves into the profound metaphors of the divine misfits and the rule upgrader, illustrating how these archetypes facilitate a transformative shift in identity, particularly for those who are neurodivergent. The divine misfit is not merely an outcast or a rebel without a cause. Rather, the divine misfit is a visionary, someone whose unique perspective and cognitive wiring allows them to see the world in ways others cannot. They're the ones who question the norms, who refuse to accept the limitation imposed by society that values conformity over innovation. The divine misfit is often labelled as disordered or dysfunctional by a system that fails to recognise the evolutionary advantage of their neurodivergent traits. However, these labels, they're merely the projections of a society that fears what it doesn't understand. The divine misfit's true power lies in their ability to reframe these labels, to see them not as limitations but as badges of honour that signify their role as pioneers of a new way of thinking. Consider the story of a child diagnosed with ADHD, whose restless energy and inability to focus on mundane tasks are seen as deficits. This child, however, possesses an apex predator brain, a cognitive engine designed for high-speed scanning and pattern detection. In a classroom setting that values rote memorization and passive compliance, this child is a divine misfit, a square peg in a round hole. But in the right environment, one that values curiosity, innovation, and rapid ideation, this child's traits, they're not just acceptable but celebrated. The shift in identity from disordered to evolutionary upgrade is not just a change in label but a fundamental transformation in how one perceives oneself and one's place in the world. The rule upgrader, on the other hand, is the divine misfit who's taken the next step in their evolutionary journey. They're not content to merely exist outside the rules. They seek to rewrite them. The rule upgrader understands that the systems and the struggles that govern society, they're not immutable laws, but rather outdated software in need of an upgrade. They see the flaws in the current operating system and have the audacity to propose something better. This isn't an act of rebellion for rebellious sake. It's a necessary evolution, a process of installing a new, more efficient, more just operating system for humanity. Take, for example, the neurodivergent individual who struggles with traditional employment structures, the 9-to-5 grind, the hierarchical bureaucracy, the emphasis on conformity over creativity. It can feel like a prison to someone whose brain is wired for innovation and rapid ideation. The rule upgrader does not merely reject this system. They envision and create alternatives. They might pioneer a new model of work that values output over hours, creativity over compliance, and passion over paychecks. In doing so, they upgrade the rules, not just for themselves, but for everyone who follows. The journey from divine misfit to rule upgrader is not a linear path, but a process of continuous evolution. It begins with the recognition that one's divergent traits, they're not flaws to be fixed, but features to be celebrated. This recognition is the first step in a profound identity shift, a metamorphosis that allows the individual to see themselves not as broken, but as a beta version of the next human operating system. This shift is not just a personal transformation, but a societal one, as each rule upgrader paves the way for a more inclusive, innovative, and just world. To facilitate this identity shift, it's essential to engage in a process of deep self-inquiry and reframing. This involves questioning the narratives that have been imposed upon us by a society that values conformity over creativity. It requires the courage to reject the labels that have been used to diminish our potential and embrace a new narrative, one that celebrates our unique cognitive wiring as an evolutionary advantage. This process is not just about changing how we see ourselves, but also about changing how we interact with the world. It's about recognizing that our differences are not just acceptable, but necessary for the evolution of humanity. In practical terms, this identity shift can be facilitated through a series of steps that involve both internal and external work. Internally, it requires a commitment to self-acceptance and self-love, a recognition that our neurodivergent traits are not just a part of who we are, but a fundamental aspect of our genius. Externally, it involves seeking out and creating environments that value and celebrate our unique cognitive wiring. This might mean finding or creating workspaces that value creativity over conformity, seeking out communities that celebrate diversity over homogeneity, and engaging in activities that allow us to express our unique talents and passions. The metaphors of the divine misfit and the rule upgrader are not just poetic devices but powerful tools for transformation. They provide a framework for understanding our own unique cognitive wiring as an evolutionary advantage rather than a deficit. They offer a path for shifting our identity from one of brokenness to one of genius, from one of conformity to one of innovation. This shift is not just a personal journey, but a societal one. As each divine misfit and rule upgrader paves the way for a more inclusive, innovative and just world. As we embrace these metaphors and embark on this journey of identity shift, we're not just transforming ourselves, but also contributing to the evolution of humanity. We're installing a new operating system, one that values diversity over conformity, innovation over tradition, and passion over paychecks. We're becoming the architects of a new world, one that celebrates the divine misfits and the rule upgraders as the pioneers of a new way of thinking and being.